Guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? आज वाला केम छो? आज सब कैसे हो? So today I have a pretty interesting video, right? As you guys can probably tell from the title, it's moon transiting through the sign of Scorpio. But usually I only do moon transit videos because they happen so much. If it's like a full moon or a new moon or an eclipse or something special in regards to the moon's position with respect to the sun, right? But here it's just moon transiting through Scorpio irrespective of where sun is compared to the moon, right? But why is this still a special transit? Okay, yeah, moon does get debilitated in Scorpio, but there's also something else here probably that's even more powerful than moon getting debilitated, okay? And that is the moon, or Scorpio, while the moon is transiting through it, gets 3 very strong special aspects on the sign, okay? And I'm going to discuss right now. There's the 3 outer planets, okay? These are the only 3 physical planets with special aspects, okay? We have Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They each have 2 special aspects, excuse me. Mars has 4 and 8, Jupiter has 5 and 9, and Saturn has 3 and 10. Out of the 2 special aspects for each planet, the higher numbered one, is the more powerful of the 2, okay? Even though these 2 aspects are both unique and different and provide their own value, in relation to whatever that aspect has to do with or is in regards to, the higher valued one out of the 2 for each planet is going to be the more powerful one. So for example, for Saturn, 10 is more powerful than 3, Jupiter, 9 is more powerful than 5, and Mars, 8 is more powerful than 4 in general, okay? I'm going to add that as a little asterisk note. In general, the higher number 1 for each planet is more powerful than the lower number 1, okay? Now, if you notice, these 3 planets are very strong in their own sign, throwing the highest numbered aspects onto Scorpio, okay? Mars is pretty strong in Aries, throwing an 8th aspect on Scorpio. Jupiter is pretty strong in Pisces, throwing a 9th aspect on Scorpio. And Saturn's in Aquarius, pretty strong, throwing a 10th aspect on Scorpio, okay? So all 3 of these energies, when they get thrown onto Scorpio while moon is debilitated there, it adds its very, very unique flavor and twist into what's going on, okay? Very, very powerful spiritually, in my opinion. Also, one thing to notice, Venus, yeah, it's pretty strong in Taurus, throwing a 7th aspect on Scorpio. The 7th aspect, it's just powerful, but it's a general aspect, right? Why? Because I've discussed this in other videos, but it's impossible for a planet not to influence the other side of the axis's energies on where it's placed, okay? So each axis, like for example, Taurus and Scorpio is 2 and 8. If Venus is in Taurus, it's impossible for it not to influence Scorpio, okay? But the reason I'm not covering this too much is because it's not a special aspect, and those higher number special aspects are very, very strong and powerful spiritually, unlike, in my opinion, how Venus is very, very strong spiritually compared to how much of a spiritual impact Venus is having in Taurus, throwing a general 7th aspect onto Scorpio, okay? So I'll go ahead and get started. Now, moon is debilitated in Scorpio, right? So at a general sense, and you guys can also watch my either full moon or new moon in Scorpio video. I have one of those 2 or both of those to understand how moon behaves in Scorpio. But at a general sense, Scorpio represents, I guess you can say, sudden changes or things kind of happening out of your control, or just things all over the place, or instability, okay? So as well as some other things too, like intuition and stuff like that. But basically the mind gets debilitated in Scorpio because it doesn't like being, it's not really the greatest thing in the world for the mind to be unstable, okay? That's why the mind gets debilitated in Scorpio, because it's unstable, it's all over the place. You can't kind of be grounded and stuff like that, like how moon is when it's, for example, when it's exalted in Taurus, okay? It's nice and grounded and stable and stuff like that. When moon is in Scorpio, it's all over the place and stuff, okay? Now, debilitated energies, and you can watch my debilitation video for more information on this, but debilitated energies have also very strong spiritually, okay? Yes, they can be challenging and stuff like this, but in the long run, usually they provide a lot of spiritual wisdom that because of that learning experience that we went through, when planets are debilitated. So when moon's debilitated in Scorpio, yeah, the mind's all over the place and stuff like that, but which, it's not, it can be a little bit of a challenge, but in the long run, this can have us learn a lot spiritually and kind of advance and become, have more wisdom and all this kind of stuff. Now, when these three planets throw a special aspect on moon, okay, and just real quick, when this transit, I don't think I discussed this transit is occurring from my time, July 9th, around 6-7 p.m., moon enters Scorpio, and on July 11th, at about 7 or 8 p.m., something around there, it leaves Scorpio. Okay, so I live in the Eastern time zone. I live in Miami. For those of you guys somewhere outside around the world, you can kind of look at it as like the New York time zone. It's the same time zone, okay? That's when this is happening. So for example, for those of you who are in India, 9 or 10 hours ahead, this transit's going to start July 10th, very early in the morning, most likely by the time you wake up, and it's going to end July 12th, early in the morning, okay? Most likely around the time you wake up or very shortly after, okay? So that's when this transit is happening. So I just described how moon is in general what's in Scorpio. Now, when you add these three aspects to it, it gets very, very interesting, okay? First, we have Mars, who is in its own sign and throwing its 8th aspect on its other own sign of Scorpio, and it happens to, like I said, be the ruler of Scorpio. Okay, Mars is the only planet that, when it's in its own sign, throws an aspect, a full special aspect on its other own sign. Okay, so let's just add this component first. So here, it basically is twofolded. Okay, everything is kind of twofolded, especially when it comes to these malefics. Okay, first off is that Mars, because it has that aggressive energy, right, that most of you guys might be a little bit familiar with, it's kind of causing the moon to be also a little bit more all over the place, okay? But because it's its 8th aspect and because it also owns Scorpio, that also causes the moon to be a little bit more intuitive. Okay, so we have the moon, stable all over the place. It has much more aggressive energy, and it also, because of that, it's also able to be a little bit more intuitive as a sense, okay, just a little bit more connected to I guess you can say higher energies and more spiritual conscious energies, I guess you can say. Okay, so that's that energy. Now we add Jupiter's flavor. Okay, so Jupiter, it's in Pisces, throwing a 9th aspect on Scorpio. Okay, so this is kind of going to add the element of what? When Mars kind of provides that energy, that aggressive energy, and also makes it more intuitive, Jupiter is saying, yeah, okay, if we use that properly, we can use that intuition to learn from that intuition. Okay, that's why Sagittarius comes right after Scorpio. Okay, we can be a little bit more intuitive, yeah, sure, but we can also learn from that intuition after we gain. Okay, and because we also own Pisces, we can also be a little bit, and because Jupiter owns Pisces and is in Pisces currently, we can say, hey, you know what? Yeah, Mars is throwing this aggressive energy, but we can remain detached from that, okay? And in some aspects, we don't have to identify and over-attach to every single emotion, such as anger, okay? So that's that. Now, we have Saturn, who's in Aquarius and throwing its 10th aspect on Scorpio, So this is saying what? This is saying, okay, yeah, there's a lot going on in the mind. Jupiter's doing its thing, Mars is doing its thing on Scorpio, Moon is also going through its own stuff, being debilitated. But Saturn's kind of, with that 10th aspect, giving us that strength and, I guess you can say, that determination and discipline to keep the mind going in the right direction. Okay, yeah, there's all this stuff going on, but this is mentally how it's got to go. Okay, yeah, Mars is providing that intuition, Jupiter's providing that wisdom. But like I said, there's a lot going on with Mars's aggressiveness and Jupiter and Moon being debilitated. So Saturn's saying, yeah, you know what? Jupiter kind of gave us the blueprint. This is what we got to do. Okay, this is why Saturn's Dasha comes right after Jupiter's. Okay, so Jupiter's saying, hey, you know what? We're using that intuition to see what we have to learn from this. And Saturn's saying, yep, we're on board. Moon, now you got to do it. Also, one other thing I want to point out. all of these planets, they're in one sign, and the other sign number they own, they're throwing that aspect. I'll give you an example. Mars owns 1 and 8, so it's in 1, throwing an aspect on 8. Jupiter owns 12 and 9, so it's in 12, throwing a 9th aspect. Saturn's in 11, throwing its 10th aspect, okay? This is very, very powerful. That means each of these planets, you're getting kind of the full energies of each of these planets at a holistic sense at that one spot, okay? Also, 8, 9, 10, it's throwing it in that order, okay? So Mars owns 8, Jupiter owns 9, Saturn owns 10. So you're getting that wisdom and all that kind of learning from that section really, really strongly, which is a very, very important section, okay? Because 8, where Moon is, 8th, Scorpio, yeah, it's a heavy, heavy Dustana, right? It's not a too desired spot materially. But because you're getting that Jupiterian and Saturn energy fully, especially that 9th and that 10th aspect specifically, you're able to kind of transcend from that 8th kind of quickly and kind of go forward, okay? Because the 8th house, yeah, it could be coined as bad, but it's also kind of good, okay? You can watch my 8th house or Scorpio, I forget what the video is called, but it was like something about 8th house and 8th house or Scorpio information. Okay, you can watch that information about how the 8th house or Scorpio energies are so important. Okay, because yeah, it's a Dustana, you don't like it, all this kind of stuff, right? Who likes moksha energies in general? But the intuition in general is the most important part of the whole zodiac belt, in my opinion. Okay, which is also why Jupiter, if you're a Sagittarius Lagna, which is Jupiter's own sign, it gets exalted in the 8th. Okay, so the moon here, just to recap, yeah, it's debilitated in Scorpio. So it's kind of going through its own tribulation. Okay, it's having Mars's aspect, so it's being a little bit more aggressive, but through that aggressiveness and through that 8th aspect also, it's becoming a lot more intuitive of the mind in general and how I am. Jupiter throwing it being in 12th, throwing a 9th aspect is saying, hey, you know what? We're very intuitive. Let's learn from that intuition properly and see what we really have to do. And let's also remain a little bit detached from some of that aggression that Mars has. Also now Saturn being in Aquarius, throwing its 10th aspect, it's saying, hey, yeah, you know what? We know what we need to do mentally. Let's go ahead and get that done. And because Saturn is in Aquarius, especially also because it's retrograde, you basically what needs to happen at a bigger picture, Saturn knows, and it'll help you be a little bit disciplined in certain areas. Okay, also one other thing, Jupiter is moving very, very slow. Okay, it's not quite retrograde, but it's not quite fully stationary either, but it's moving pretty slow. Okay, it's within a month of it going retrograde, so it's slowing down. So that awareness of that Jupiter is also going to be a lot higher. Okay, so that that energy of learning from your intuition and kind of seeing, okay, what do I really need to learn mentally from me being a little bit intuitive and a little bit unturbulent is also going to be there as well. Okay, so I think I could discuss the main points of this video. So just throughout these couple days, just see, you know what, your mind might be a little bit all over the place, but just see those energies individually as much as you can. Okay, see, okay, am I being a little bit more intuitive, and am I also being a little bit more aggressive, you can say, or a little bit, you know, having that Martian aggression energies. Okay, now after that, am I learning properly from that intuition and being able to detach from that aggression that I'm facing in the mind, okay, or facing from that all over the placeness energy that I'm facing in the mind. Okay, and I am learning from that, and I do realize what I need to do mentally and all that stuff. Now we move on to Saturn. Am I actually doing that? Am I actually, you know, detaching properly? Am I actually, you know, doing the mental work I need to put all the garbage that behind in my mind and really go towards what I really need to do karmically, which is what Aquarius represents. Okay, am I going to how I'm thinking mentally? Am I, you know, I know what I need to do now. Am I prioritizing properly how I need to do the mental work to move in the direction that I need to move in? Okay, just one other quick thing. Venus being in Taurus, it's not a special aspect, but Taurus is Venus's own sign, so I do just want to cover this real quick. So Venus in Taurus basically means your enjoyment is, you know, you're able to enjoy a little bit properly. So basically you could feel that yeah, your mind is all over the place, but you're not really too down. You'll be able to. You're not going to feel too down uh, in life overall, from a sense of enjoyment. Like you won't really feel like anything is missing, which will help. Okay, that's why the planet, when it throws the seventh aspect, but it's in its own sign, it helps a lot. Okay, so when Venus is in Taurus and throwing a seventh aspect on Scorpio, the Venus owns Taurus, right? So it's basically saying, hey, I'm able to enjoy. So how you can add this to this picture that I just described is that when Moon is all over the place, you can fuel that and say, hey, you know what, on the outside, I'm pretty content. I'm pretty content with what I'm enjoying and all this kind of stuff. So let me go ahead and further my, what I need to do as far as that, what that Mars, Jupiter's, and Saturn's aspect is trying to throw on me, okay? Because those three are much, much more powerful planets spiritually. So we can say, hey, you know what, we're kind of enjoying the things we need to mentally. Like we're enjoying the things we need to. So even though our mind is all over the place, we can kind of justify that to ourselves and say, hey, you know what, we're kind of able to enjoy. Okay, we don't need to be so, like there's no reason for all this. Okay, like we're enjoying, whatever we need to enjoy. But now through this, let's go ahead and become intuitive, learn and detach, from any sort of frustration or aggressiveness or instability we're facing, and let's go ahead and do whatever mental work we need to do to go towards whatever absolute direction we need to in life. Okay, and this can be things like meditating, doing yoga, doing things like this, or even it's only 2 days, right? This thing, or 48 hours. So throughout this time, if you're feeling any sort of way at someone, we do a lot of things throughout the day without realizing, right? Or without being too aware. So this can make us really aware of our daily actions. Okay. So let's just go ahead and throughout this day, just be really, whenever we're, our mind is all over the place doing the things that we usually do, let's just go ahead and be aware, so we can fix the patterns mentally, and so we can fix our life overall as a whole. Okay. Because, let's just say we notice we're getting mad at some people. This can make that more profound. Or we notice we're, feeling anxious in certain situations. This can make this more profound. Any sort of feelings or thoughts that your mind throws at you, they're going to be a lot more profound during this time. Okay, which is what Moon gets debilitated represents. But let's just remember that we can use this in the best way possible, especially with these 3 to 4 aspects, rather than going down the wrong route and kind of just complaining and moaning, and stuff like that. Okay, because we don't want to do that, right? We want to spiritually evolve ourselves and use this human birth and life as an opportunity to advance spiritually before our time here is over in this birth. Okay, we don't want to waste it all complaining and feeding the ego and blaming it on everything external and stuff like that. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions or comments, as usual, you can always feel free to let me know. And until next time, talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching.